A man in his late 50s spent 3 years believing he was simply getting older. He would wake up 2, 3, then 4 times a night to urinate. The flow was weak, the feeling of incomplete emptying was constant, and the disrupted sleep was affecting his mood, his work, and his family. His doctor diagnosed him with benign prostatic hyperplasia and prescribed medication. It helped a little, but symptoms never fully disappeared, until a men's health nutritionist asked him something no one ever had. "What do you eat every day?" After hearing the answer, he said, 5 of the foods you mentioned are actively inflaming your prostate. Change that, and in 3 months, you will notice a real difference. 11 weeks later, he was waking up once a night, sometimes not at all. Today, you will learn exactly which 5 foods those are, why they harm the prostate specifically, and what to replace them with starting this week. Why the prostate is so vulnerable to diet. The prostate is a walnut-sized gland just below the bladder. It depends heavily on hormones and on the body's inflammatory state. After age 50, 50% of men experience symptoms related to prostate enlargement. By 80, that figure reaches 90%. The most common symptoms are urinary urgency, frequent nighttime waking, weak flow, incomplete emptying, and post-urination dribbling. This enlargement is not inevitable. Diet is one of the most powerful factors that accelerates it. All 5 foods covered here share the same denominator. They generate chronic inflammation, hormonal imbalance, or oxidative stress in prostate tissue. A National Cancer Institute study found that men with chronically elevated inflammatory markers had nearly 3 times the likelihood of developing aggressive prostate cancer over 10 years, solely due to sustained inflammation. Food. 1. Red meat and processed meats. Red meat contains high levels of saturated fat and arachidonic acid. When metabolized, this acid triggers inflammatory molecules that concentrate in sensitive tissues, and the prostate is among the most sensitive. Excess saturated fat also increases production of dihydrotestosterone, the hormone directly responsible for prostate tissue growth. Processed meats had a third problem: nitrates and nitrites that convert into cell-damaging compounds when cooked at high heat. A study following 175,000 men for 15 years found that those eating red meat more than 5 times weekly had a 43% higher risk of aggressive prostate cancer compared to those eating it less than once a week. What to do? Reduce red meat to a maximum of 100 grams per week and eliminate processed meats entirely. Replace with fatty fish like salmon and sardines, which contain omega-3s that reduce inflammation instead of fueling it. Food. 2. Full-fat dairy products. Full-fat dairy is rich in calcium, which sounds positive, but when the body receives sustained high amounts of calcium, it reduces production of calcitriol, the active form of vitamin D with documented anti-cancer properties against prostate cancer. A study of 82,000 men over 20 years found that those consuming 3 to 4 daily dairy servings had a 31% higher risk of advanced prostate cancer. Cow's milk also naturally contains insulin-like growth factor, a hormone that stimulates cell division. Harvard research showed men with high levels of this factor in their blood had up to 4 times the likelihood of developing prostate cancer. The saturated fat in full-fat dairy further raises dihydrotestosterone levels. What to do? Switch full-fat dairy for unsweetened plant-based milks from almond, oat, or coconut. For calcium, rely on cooked leafy greens, almonds, sesame seeds, and canned sardines with bones. Food. 3. Refined sugars and simple carbohydrates. When you consume refined sugar or white flour, blood glucose spikes rapidly. Repeated several times daily over years, chronically elevated insulin stimulates production of insulin-like growth factor, a cell growth promoter that becomes dangerous in inflamed or abnormal tissue, and generates low-grade systemic inflammation that affects all tissues, including the prostate. A Johns Hopkins study of 64,000 men found that those consuming more than 67 grams of added sugar daily, the equivalent of 2 soft drinks, had a 38% higher risk of symptomatic benign prostatic hyperplasia. Men with type 2 diabetes, which often results from years of excess sugar, had an 86% higher likelihood of developing aggressive prostate cancer, partly because abnormal prostate cells use glucose as their preferred fuel for growth. What to do? Replace white bread, sugary cereals, and soft drinks with whole oats, brown rice, quinoa, sweet potato, and legumes. These release glucose gradually without the inflammatory insulin spikes. Food. 4. Alcohol, and beer in particular. Alcohol affects the prostate through 3 simultaneous mechanisms. First, it directly irritates the bladder and urethra during elimination, worsening nighttime symptoms in men with already enlarged prostates. Second, it raises activity of the aromatase enzyme, which converts testosterone into estrogen, and excess estrogen actively contributes to prostate enlargement. It also depletes zinc, the mineral found in highest concentration in any body tissue, right inside the prostate. Third, alcohol generates oxidative stress that accumulates as cellular damage in prostate tissue over time. Beer carries an additional problem. Hops contain estrogen-mimicking compounds that amplify the hormonal damage. A 12-year study of 48,000 men found those drinking more than 4 beers weekly had a 27% higher likelihood of symptomatic prostate enlargement. A meta-analysis of 27 studies found that more than 2 daily alcoholic drinks raised prostate cancer risk by 20% and aggressive cancer risk by 33%. What to do? If you already have symptoms, eliminate alcohol for at least 8 weeks and observe the difference. If not, limit consumption to 2 or 3 drinks per week maximum, never daily, and avoid beer as a first choice. Food. 5. Refined vegetable oils and trans fats. This is the most consumed harmful food without awareness, not because it sits visibly in the refrigerator, but because it is hidden in most processed foods, most cooking oils on the market, and virtually everything fried outside the home. Soybean oil, corn oil, sunflower oil, refined canola oil, margarine, and commercially fried foods are all in this category. The problem is their fatty acid composition. These oils are extremely rich in omega-6 fatty acids. The modern diet has an omega-6 to omega-3 ratio of approximately 20 to 1, when the ideal is 4 to 1 or less. This excess omega-6 is metabolized into inflammatory molecules that circulate continuously. A cancer prevention research study found that men with the highest omega-6 to omega-3 tissue ratios had a 64% higher likelihood of developing prostate cancer. Trans fats are worse. They incorporate literally into cell membranes, disrupting their function. A University of California study of 52,000 men found that those cooking regularly with refined oils or eating fried foods frequently had a 41% higher risk of symptomatic prostate enlargement. These oils also hide in commercial salad dressings, mayonnaise, packaged biscuits, industrial breads, and foods labeled as healthy granola bars. What to do? Replace all refined oils and margarine with extra virgin olive oil for low to medium heat cooking, and avocado oil for higher temperatures. Use whole avocado, walnuts, almonds, chia seeds, and fatty fish as natural fat sources rich in omega-3s. 3. Common myths worth addressing. Myth 1. Prostate problems are inevitable with age. Biology says otherwise. The speed and severity of prostate enlargement depend largely on modifiable factors. Populations following traditional diets low in processed foods show significantly lower rates of symptomatic hyperplasia than men eating a Western diet. Age is a factor, not the only one. Myth 2. No symptoms means no problem. Prostate inflammation can advance silently for years before symptoms appear. Elevated prostate-specific antigen can precede symptoms by years. Annual blood testing after 50 is the only way to get a real picture. Myth 3. Diet changes are not enough. That is what medication is for. Medication and diet are not competing options. They are complementary. Multiple studies show men who combine both achieve better clinical outcomes than those who rely on medication alone. A full day of eating to protect your prostate. On waking, a glass of warm water starts the day without glucose spikes and supports tissue hydration. Breakfast, whole oats with chia seeds, fresh blueberries or strawberries, and walnuts. Optional, 2 scrambled eggs with cooked spinach. To drink, unsweetened green tea, whose catechins are associated with reduced prostate cancer risk in multiple studies. Mid-morning, a handful of raw almonds and a whole piece of fruit. Almonds are rich in vitamin E and zinc, both directly linked to prostate tissue health. Lunch, a quality protein, ideally salmon or sardines twice a week, skinless chicken on other days, with steamed or grilled vegetables. Broccoli deserves special mention for its sulforaphane content, which has documented properties against abnormal prostate cell growth. Dress with extra virgin olive oil and lemon. Add quinoa, brown rice, or legumes as your complex carbohydrate. Afternoon snack, half an avocado with sea salt and lemon, alongside 10 cherry tomatoes. Cooked tomatoes provide lycopene, an antioxidant that accumulates preferentially in prostate tissue and is consistently associated with lower prostate cancer risk. Dinner, a light pumpkin and ginger soup. Ginger has well-documented anti-inflammatory properties, with a small portion of chicken or fish with turmeric, and asparagus roasted in olive oil. Turmeric contains curcumin, one of the most studied natural anti-inflammatory compounds in existence. Before bed, chamomile infusion and 6 walnuts whose omega-3 fatty acids continue reducing inflammation during sleep. Summary: 5 foods to reduce or eliminate red and processed meats, raise dihydrotestosterone and drive prostate inflammation. Full-fat dairy in excess suppresses active vitamin D and elevates the growth factor that stimulates prostate cells. Refined sugars and white flour fuel chronic inflammation and create the environment for abnormal prostate growth. Alcohol, especially beer, irritates the urinary tract, disrupts hormonal balance, and depletes prostate zinc. Refined vegetable oils and trans fats generate sustained whole-body inflammation through omega-6 excess. 5 changes to make this week. Add fatty fish twice a week, switch to unsweetened plant-based milk, remove soft drinks and white bread from breakfast, eliminate or significantly reduce alcohol, replace refined oils with extra virgin olive oil. The man from the beginning made no radical changes. He simply replaced 5 things with 5 other things. In 11 weeks, he recovered sleep he had lost for 3 years. That is not magic. It is the documented biological response of a body that stops receiving what inflames it and starts receiving what heals it. Start with 1 change. 1 sustained change is infinitely more powerful than 5 changes that last 3 days. An important note. If you're over 50 and have not had a prostate checkup in the past year, schedule one now. Ask your doctor for a prostate-specific antigen blood test. If you notice blood in your urine or semen, pelvic pain, severe difficulty urinating, or rapidly worsening symptoms, seek medical attention immediately. Diet is a powerful complement to treatment, not a substitute